She cheated before the wedding. Got married anyway. Continued cheating. If someone had told me that my dream wedding would turn into the start of my worst nightmare, I wouldn't have believed them. I mean, who could? When you're standing in front of the person you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with, exchanging vows you've written from the heart, the idea of betrayal is the furthest thing from your mind. Our wedding was straight out of a fairy tale. It was in this picturesque little town in Italy. Emily, my wife, always dreamed of a destination wedding, and I wanted to give her exactly that. The sun was setting over the vineyard, the air was filled with the scent of lavender, and we were surrounded by our closest friends and family. She looked at me with so much love in her eyes, it made my chest ache in the best way. It felt perfect, you know? Like nothing could touch us. The reception was just as magical. We danced under a canopy of twinkling lights, toasted with endless glasses of Prosecco, and laughed until our cheeks hurt. It was the happiest day of my life. I remember thinking, I am the luckiest man in the world. But just weeks after we got home, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Emily began staying late at work more often, saying she was swamped with new projects. She was distant, distracted, and when I'd ask her if everything was okay, she'd brush it off. I'm just tired, she'd say with a faint smile. I told myself it was normal, marriage was an adjustment, and maybe she just needed time to settle into our new chapter. But as the days turned into weeks, her coldness became impossible to ignore. She'd sit across from me at dinner, scrolling through her phone, barely engaging in conversation. The way she used to light up when I walked into the room. Gone. I felt like I was sharing my life with a stranger, and I couldn't understand why. I tried everything I could think of to bring us back to what we had. I planned surprise date nights, cooked her favorite meals, even suggested we take a weekend trip to reconnect. She always had an excuse, too tired, too busy, too stressed. I don't know what's wrong with me, she said one night after I finally pressed her about her mood. I just feel unhappy. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Unhappy? We had just gotten married. Wasn't this supposed to be the honeymoon phase? I asked if there was anything I could do, anything she needed from me to feel better, but she just shook her head. I think I just need some space to figure it out. Something about her tone didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just unhappiness, I could feel it in my gut. There was something she wasn't telling me. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. I told myself to trust her, to give her the space she said she needed. But the more I tried to ignore the nagging feeling, the louder it got. One night, while Emily was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I don't know what came over me, I've never been the type to snoop. But something inside me said I needed to see what was there. My hand shook as I unlocked her phone, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might wake her. That's when I saw it. Texts from a guy named Ryan in her contacts. The messages weren't just friendly, they were flirtatious, intimate, full of inside jokes I wasn't a part of. My stomach churned as I scrolled further, and then I found it, a message from him sent just a few weeks before our wedding. I can't stop thinking about you, it read. Wish we didn't have to hide this. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My head was spinning, my chest tight. This wasn't just some harmless flirtation. She had been seeing him before our wedding. While I was writing my vows, she was sneaking around behind my back. I stared at her phone, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. My mind raced with questions I couldn't begin to answer. How long had this been going on? Why did she marry me if she was already involved with someone else? Did she even love me? When Emily stepped out of the shower, I was still sitting there, phone in hand. She froze, her towel clutched tightly around her. What are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling just enough to confirm what I already knew. Who's Ryan? My voice was flat, devoid of the anger and heartbreak swirling inside me. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing how much this was destroying me. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I thought she might tell the truth. But then she shook her head, forcing a weak laugh. Ryan? He's just a coworker. Why are you going through my phone? Don't, I cut her off. Don't insult me by lying right now. I saw the messages, Emily. I know. Her face crumpled, but instead of an apology, she doubled down. It's not what you think, she stammered. We were just talking. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I repeated, my voice rising. You were talking about hiding your relationship before our wedding. How is that supposed to mean nothing? She didn't answer. Instead, she sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know why I did it. I didn't want to hurt you. Her words only made me angrier. You didn't want to hurt me? Then why did you go through with the wedding? Why stand up there in front of everyone we love and make vows you had no intention of keeping? She didn't respond. The silence between us felt suffocating, heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. I wanted her to fight for us, to show some sign that she regretted what she'd done, but all she said was, I think I need some time to figure things out. That was the beginning of the end. Over the next few weeks, her late nights at work became more frequent, her excuses more hollow. I felt like I was watching our relationship disintegrate in real time, powerless to stop it. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my future around, was slipping further and further away. And then, one night, she didn't come home at all. I called her, texted her, even reached out to one of her friends to see if they'd heard from her. Nothing. When she finally walked through the door the next morning, she didn't bother with an explanation. She just looked at me with a mixture of guilt and defiance and said, I think we should separate. Separate? I repeated, my voice cracking. You mean you're leaving me? She nodded. I'm moving in with Ryan. If finding out about the affair had been a knife to the heart, this was the twist that drove it deeper. 6 years of love, memories, and dreams shattered in an instant. She packed her things that same day, leaving me in the empty apartment we'd once called home. The weeks that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and confusion. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. How could she marry me, knowing she was in love with someone else? How could she look me in the eye and promise forever, only to throw it all away? Eventually, I realized that the problem wasn't me, it was her. She made the choice to cheat, to lie, to walk away without so much as a real apology. Accepting that didn't make the pain go away, but it gave me a small sense of closure. It's been a year now since she left. I'd like to say I've moved on completely, but the truth is, some wounds take longer to heal. There are days when I feel angry, days when I feel lonely, and days when I question whether I'll ever trust someone again. But there are also days when I feel hopeful, when I remind myself that her betrayal doesn't define me. I'm learning to focus on the future, to rebuild the parts of my life she tried to break. And while I may never understand why she did what she did, I know one thing for sure, I deserve better. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.